Welcome back. So the next chapter I'm going to read to you is called Something Red. And when I read that made me think, at Christmas, what reminds me? What is something red? What do we, maybe something that we wear? Something we hang, like decorations? That got me thinking, what is red at Christmas? Let's find out. As Nicholas discovered, riding a reindeer is a little easier than you think. It is a bit of a bumpy ride, but still a lot better than walking, especially walking with blistered feet. Indeed, even the bumpiness was something that Nicholas grew used to. He sat there, holding his hand delicately over his coat pocket to help keep Meeka warm. So Meeka is a little mouse that keeps him company, and he keeps him in his pocket to keep him warm. I need to give you a name, he told the reindeer. Names might not be important to reindeer, but they're important to people. What about... He closed his eyes and he remembered the dream he'd had of sledging by Lake Blitzen as a child. What about Blitzen? The reindeer's ears pricked up and he raised his head. Nicholas decided that Blitzen it should be. That's what I'm going to call you, if that's all right. And it seemed as if it was okay. I'll show you a lovely picture of Blitzen here. It's another reason why I really like this book is the illustrations. Beautiful. Nicholas, Meeka and Blitzen travelled together for what seemed like days. It got colder and colder, and Nicholas was thankful for having Blitzen, the old lady's shawl, and Meeka to keep his hand warm in his pocket. He often leant forward to hug the reindeer and to feed him from the small supply of mushrooms and berries he kept in his right-hand pocket. Eventually, the landscape became entirely white, and Nicholas knew they were at the empty bit on the map. The snow got deeper and the wind got harsher, but Blitzen proved tough. His strong legs and sturdy frame powered through the deepening snow. It became difficult to see far ahead amid all the whiteness, but something was rising on the horizon. A vast, wide, craggy peak. Finally, as the tiny sliver of a sickle moon hung low in the sky, the snow stopped falling and they reached the very large mountain. Nicholas gave Blitzen his second to last mushroom and his last one to Meeka. He ate nothing himself, though his stomach rumbled like a distant storm. The mountain seemed to go on forever. The further they climbed, the higher it seemed to get. Blitzen was beginning to slow down, as if he finally was exhausted. Good boy, Blitzen, Nicholas kept saying wearily. Good boy. He kept one hand over Meeka to keep him safe in his pocket, and occasionally used the other to pat the reindeer's back. Blitzen's feet were pressing on nothing but snow now, and it was getting thicker. It was a wonder he could keep going at all. Nicholas felt blinded by the white, until at last, halfway up the mountain, there was a flash of red, looking like a streak of blood, a scar in the snow maybe. Nicholas jumped off the reindeer and clambered through the freezing whiteness towards it to see what it was. It was hard work. He sank into the snow, knee-deep every time he took a step. It was as if the mountain wasn't a mountain, but just a giant pile of snow. Eventually he got there. It wasn't blood though, it was a red hat, and he recognised it in an instant. That was his father's red hat. The hat he had made from a red rag and a fluffy white cotton bobble. It was cold and frozen and clogged with powdery snow, but there was no mistaking it. Nicholas felt a deep, piercing anguish shoot through his weak body. He feared the worst had happened. "Papa!" he shouted over and over again. He dug with his hands into the snow. "Papa! Papa!" He tried to tell himself that finding his father's hat didn't mean anything. There's the hat. Does that remind you of somebody's hat? There's the red cloth and the cotton pom-pom that's used at the end. Maybe that hat had just blown off of his father's head and he had been in a hurry and hadn't been able to find it again. Maybe. But when your bones ache with cold and when you are starving with hunger, it's hard to keep looking on the bright side. "Papa! Papa, where are you?" He stayed there digging the snow with his bare hands until, shaking and frozen, he burst into tears. "It's all useless," Nicholas told Meeka, who was looking out of his coat pocket, his small shivering head braving the cold. "It's no use. We're not going to find him. We must turn around." He then shouted louder, addressing Blitzen. "We must head south. I'm sorry. I should never have taken you with me. I shouldn't have taken either of you. It's too harsh, too dangerous, even for a reindeer. Let's go back home from where we came from." But Blitzen wasn't listening. He was walking away, struggling through the thick snow, climbing further up the mountain. Blitzen, you're going the wrong way. There's nothing for us there. But still, Blitzen kept walking. He turned his head as if to tell Nicholas to keep going. For a moment, Nicholas thought about staying still. Just staying there until the snow covered him, until he was part of the mountain himself. There seemed no point in going forwards or backwards. He realised how silly he had been to leave the cottage. Hope had finally left him. It was so cold, his tears froze on his face. Shivering, he watched Blitzen climb. Blitzen! He closed his eyes and he stopped crying, waited for the chill to leave his bones and peace to come at last. But in a matter of minutes, he felt a gentle, tender nudge against his ear. Opening his eyes, he saw Blitzen's unblinking eyes behind a cloud of warm breath, looking at him in a way that made him think that he understood everything. What was it that made Nicholas climb back onto the reindeer? Was it hope? Was it courage? Was it just a need to finish what he had started? One thing is for certain, Nicholas felt something beginning to burn inside him, weak and tired and cold and hungry and sad as he was. He grabbed hold of his father's hat, shook off the loose snow, put it on his head and climbed back onto the reindeer. The reindeer, tired, cold and hungry as he was, carried on walking up the mountain because that is what mountains are for. That's a lovely illustration of the mountain there. So I really enjoyed that chapter, purely because it's the first introduction that you have of the hat, and maybe the first sign of Nicholas slowly turning into Father Christmas. So I've got one more chapter that I'd like to share with you, so keep posted.